DictReader. This is another way to read, and also we'll look at DictWriter and to write to a CSV file. And it's really just a convenience method. You can certainly work up your own solution to any problem involving CSV using the reader and writer objects that we mentioned in the last video. But the DictReader just makes it easy in some ways. What we'll do is we'll open a file for reading. We will, again, I'll call it DReader. That's my favorite way to do it. csv.DictReader, and we'll pass it the file object, same as we did with the CSV reader object. And then we'll loop through it. For row in DReader, print row. And why don't I, just to make it crystal clear, print a little bar in between, and let's just see what we get when we loop. So as you can see, each row is a dictionary, and the dictionary not only, and let's look at the file again as well, not only does the dictionary have a row's worth of data, but the keys are the headings. So this DictReader actually does a little bit more work for us. For one thing, it assumes that the first row is going to be the header, the headings, that is the column heads, company, state, and price. So obviously what the DictReader is doing is it's internally reading that first row. It's assuming that that first row is the headings, and so these will be the keys in the dictionary. Then we end up with this beautifully convenient dictionary that has keys that are the headings. So for any given row, instead of saying give me row 0, row 1, row 2, and have to remember which field is which, we can instead say give me, I want to see the company, and I want to see the, let's say the price value, or the state maybe. Company, and is from row state. And this is a beautiful thing. I mean, it makes things so much clearer when you're writing this code. And we're able to work with each row in just a much more convenient way. It doesn't confer any particular additional benefit. It just saves us from having to deal with the header, and also from having to remember which field is which, and having to use indices to get to a given row, the way we did previously when we, was it 9 or 10? 8? 7, where we had to say, you know, for each row, pull out the last item, let's say, or where else am I doing it? Or get the first item and update it, you know. Here now we can just say, give me the company name, give me the state abbreviation, give me the price value. So that works really nicely. Now, if we were interested in writing to the same file, or to a new file, the same way we did earlier, we can certainly do it. I can go ahead and say that I'm going to build a new file. I'm going to open that file for writing. And then I'm going to create a DictWriter. Now, I'm not implying that you should always work this way with your your reader and your writer. I'm not suggesting that the standard way to work is to open up a reader and a writer and then write to the writer as you're going through the reader. They're not necessarily used in tandem. We may prefer to we may have some data that came from a database and we'd like to write it to a CSV, or maybe from the user, or maybe from some temporal thing, or maybe from pulling it from the internet and we need to write it to a CSV. So we're not, or vice versa. We might be reading from a CSV and going somewhere with that data that's not another CSV. But I'm just showing this to you to show the convenience here. Now, if we wanted to selectively write, let's say we'd like to make a new CSV that just has row company and row state, or rather the company and the state from the row. How are we going to manage that? Well, we are going to need to, if we're going to use the DictWriter, we're going to need to build a dict to write to the file, because the DictWriter is the opposite of the DictReader. It's going to take a dictionary with the headings to go into the file. So let's say we wanted to then make a new dictionary with company as the key and the value for company as the value, state is the key, and the state from the row is the value. And this is making up a new dictionary, and we're doing this because we're building a new dictionary out of the old dictionary. And then we can say something like dwriter.writeRow, and then we'll give it a dictionary. Just doing the reverse of what the DictReader did. But I left something out. DictWriter requires that you give it the headings that you want to use, because DictWriter will go ahead and write those at your command. And it's also going to use these headings to verify that the dictionary that you pass is, has the right keys. So I'm going to say row and state. I'm not exactly sure why PyCharm's freaking out right now, but I think it's going to settle down in just a moment. I'm passing company and state because I'm intending to write to a file with just 2 of the columns. And then the other thing that I'll need to do if I do want, well, let's try it without actually. I'm going to go ahead and do a writing. I'm going to make sure to close my file by the end. I was trying to make that real clear. I'm going to try to write to the end. Let's go ahead and check out new DictRev CSV once we've written to it. And there it is. So we opened it up and we see there it is, company name and state. But there is something missing. We didn't get the headers in there. That actually has to be done automatically, or it has to be done on command. Trying to remember now. Is it write header? I don't think so, actually. I don't think so. I think I'm going to get an error. Okay, write header. Okay, no underscore. So I was close, very close. So now I'm going to write the header, and it goes ahead and does it. When we go back and take a look at the file, which is called new DictRev, we see that the header now has been indeed written to the file. Now, when we do write header, how come we're not passing any values? I mean, how does it know which values to pass? Well, we passed the values to the writer object when we first started, so the writer object is perfectly aware of what the keys of each dict needs to be, and also is aware of what the header would look like if we write it. So when we say write header, it just uses the information that we gave to it. Keep in mind, of course, that if you have any key in the dictionary row that you want to write that does not match what you put into the expecting headings, then you will get an error. And it will say to you, I don't know what that company X means. Dict contains fields not in field names. These are the field names, so these keys from each dictionary must match, company and state, must match what we have in that contract above. So this is how we use the DictReader and the DictWriter, and it's a very convenient way to work. Now, whether or not you choose the CSV reader or the CSV writer is completely up to you. It's going to depend only on your convenience and on your clarity of expression. In other words, we do want to make sure that what you're writing and the code that you're writing is clear enough for any other reader to be able to read it and understand it. There is something very clear and very explicit about having a dictionary keys that match the columns that I think makes this a bit easier to work with. But your mileage may vary. It really depends on what you prefer. So whether you'd like to use either one is completely up to you, and there is no particular advantage of using one over the other. I'm not sure if one is faster than the other, but we don't generally think that way in most cases. Okay, I hope you enjoy, and please let me know if you have any questions.